Hey, Andrew.
And I'm gonna give one more round of applause and a thank you while we got the tape running for Kathy Best for getting us all together. Let's give her one more round of applause.
Kathy.
Thank you. Read the comments and you'll see my role.
You should know, Kathy. This is Carl, Laura, and I work the AV table at APME. So this is what we do, and I see many more of our colleagues coming in, and this is fantastic. So we've got several of us queued up that are going to say a few thoughts and share our thinking in remembrance of Laura. I wanted to begin with some of the words from the Daily Estonian, and I thought they did a fantastic job of carrying forward of so many of those things. Carl, your team did a wonderful job in making that happen, so thank you. I'm not going to read the entire obit, but I want to go through at least a couple pieces of this. This is a quote from Carl. She loved life and her puppies. Sitting on the couch with a dog in her lap, reading a book was a common sight in her house. She liked doing things her way. She liked learning to drive a motorcycle because she did not think I was doing it right. So she wanted me to show me how. We love to travel, and we were planning our next trips for when the travel restrictions were lifted. She loved giving out super awesome cards. How many of y'all got super awesome cards from Laura? Yeah, me too. She carried with them all the time, and she was ready to reward anyone she felt was super awesome. And these always brought a smile to the face of anyone receiving them. I'm gonna have a tough time getting through this. I need all your help.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks. I do want to thank everybody for coming together with this. I know it's tough not to be able to physically get together, but I think in this time, this is the next best thing that we can do, and it really shows the love that everybody had for her. I mean, you guys really were our family. You know, we loved getting together with you every opportunity we had. And, you know, I know everyone is going to miss her. I am still I'm going to try to stay in touch, try to attend and visit with everybody as often as I can. But I just wanted to say thank you for doing this. It really shows the love that was out there. Thank you.
Carl, words are failing me. You know, everyone says I can talk all the time. I just can't.
First time for everything.
Thanks, Carl. We want to do, we want to remember her. We want to gather together. We want to have some thoughts and celebration here. We want you to know how much we care, not only about Laura, but about you, and how much that our thoughts and energies and prayers are going to you at this time as well. And with Kathy's help, I'd like for Suki, our former APME president and senior managing editor of the Star Tribune in Minneapolis, if she could say a few words and kick things off. Suki.
You bet. Thank you. I'm really glad to be here with you guys because Laura's here. I was excited to be with Laura's spirit, if nothing else, and you're bringing it here, and just saying flip is a comfort to the soul. I know she would want us to do her right here and also to have a little fun. So let's try and do that. I think I'm going first because this is an age before beauty thing. So I appreciate that. Laura and I, although she was younger than me, both joined APME at about the same time. That was 25 years ago. 25 years ago. And we both joined as Bob Magruder was president, and we were Cubs, and we grew up together as editors, as many of us here in this room did too. And as I was thinking about her, I was thinking that she was the ultimate APME editor. She exemplified our group. She could be our mascot. We could have her on t-shirts. She would love that. And why? Why was that? First of all, she worked hard and with heart. And I feel like that was the fiber of her soul. That's what connected us all together. That was a hallmark of APME. And I would say she and Carl worked hard. You know, she came on to the organization and the board as we were shifting from doing studies to doing big initiatives, Time Out for Diversity and Accuracy, credibility roundtables, News Train, which has survived with her help. She was one of the first online editors in the world. And then she was one of the first online editors for APME. It was back then that we decided we should allow online editors, 2 of them, onto the board. And she and Carl really helped push us into the digital age. They helped us with the website. They helped us think in a more innovative way. She was always very solutions driven, even when we were in a tight spot, working on mission statements or battling over something. She always spoke with hope and optimism, and she was always there working hard. I don't need to detail that for all of you. You all know that. She also played hard and with heart. You all probably know that too. But I have 25 years of experience with this. So, and I can speak to her ability to play hard and with heart. After working hard and with heart all day long, we're at board meetings, we're at conferences. I remember staggering through the streets of Manhattan one time. Her mother had come to New York for a meeting, and we were looking for cheesecake for her mother. And for some reason, we could not find cheesecake in the streets of New York. So it took hours before we found a diner that had a cheesecake. But on the way, we did find some bars. And one of the conversations we had had at our board meeting that day was how to engage younger audiences. And so on our way looking for cheesecake and stopping at bars, Laura engaged younger audiences, and she took the time to ask them, do you read? Where do you get your information for news? And it was such a joyful moment. You know, she was such a community connector, and she was so fun. And she made all the work that we did much more fun. She was part of the Northwest Mafia. At one time, we had probably half a dozen people from the Northwest on the board. And she and Carl were heart and soul of that. We went up to Vancouver and met with editors in 2006 when I was president. And that was an amazing event. I have some pictures I'll pop up later, but she was just too much fun. And yes, she was super awesome. She was totally super awesome. I have one thing that I'll share. Oh, maybe I can't. Anyway, she was super awesome. I have cards to prove it.
Hold on, Suki.
I am dressed up. I'm wearing a formal dress today, and I'm wearing my Annette Magruder scarf because Laura loved it when I dressed up. Because she could make comments about my physique and have some fun. And so I dressed up because I knew Laura would like that today. Third and last thing that really makes me think about her as a mascot for APME and as kind of the soul of APME was that she was family, like all of you. You'd see her at the airport or in a hallway at the conference, and she'd say, "Hey, darling," and it was just like she was just so welcoming. And she and Carl just embraced everybody. And you just pick up where you left off, 25 years of that. And I'll miss that. But that is sort of a hallmark of who we are and who she is and was. So thank you, Darwin.
Thank you, Suki. Kathy and I have summoned the gods of Zoom, and they are now allowing you to share anything you wish. So if you wish to share anything, those super awesome cards, I looked.
Okay, super awesome card. Can you see that on my screen?
I can see it.
Okay. And then this is a picture from Vancouver, which I just thought was really fun. There's Laura. There's some bear. We'd been out staggering around all night and we're playing with a bear. Anyway, I just think about her spirit and I think about moments like that. So thank you, darling.
Thank you, Suki. And, you know, Suki mentioned Laura's historic role in really introducing digital journalism to her newspapers. Carl and her moved to Astoria in 1992 when Carl became the newspaper's production manager, and then she was an advertising designer. I learned in the Astorian story about her, and then an editorial assistant, rising to the rank of managing editor in 1995, becoming the first woman to earn that title. And she and Carl built the newspaper's first website, and in the year 2000, 20 years ago, became the first internet editor for the EO Media Group, the parent company of her newspaper. I mean, we'll be talking about some of her historic roles, both in journalism and APME as we go forward, but saving me before I start breaking down and start to cry, next is going to be Angie Muse, the former APME editor, now joining me in a corporate communication role. Angie, I'm scanning. I hope you're on the call. There you are. I see you in my screen. Take it away. It's all yours.
Okay. Well, you know, when I was calling people on Tuesday night to share this sad news, I kept saying sentences that just didn't seem possible to, you know, my brain. I was saying things, but I couldn't really believe it. So I sat down this morning to try to gather a few thoughts, you know, for this today, and found myself with severe writer's block. So I kind of thought, well, what might Laura do? So I texted a friend and said, you want to meet downtown at the farmer's market and have a Bloody Mary? So that's what we did. So I like to think that Laura would approve of the Bloody Mary, for one, for sure, but also just of the reaching out. And I talked through things with my friend and, you know, was able, you know, they came away saying, wow, I'm not a journalist and I really wish I had known this woman. So I was asked to talk about Laura's later years in her presidency on APME. And, you know, there's just so much to say. And I know many other people are going to talk about all the things that Laura did and, you know, all the things she accomplished quietly, because she didn't talk about her own accomplishments. It was always about the good of the group and, you know, focusing on the task at hand. So Laura's presidency came at a pivotal time because we were in the early stages of having the joint conferences with ASNE. And that was a big decision, and we didn't know it at the time, but it was one of the things that kind of paved the way and laid the groundwork for the eventual merger of the two organizations. But that doesn't mean it was always easy. There were a few bumps to work out along the way, and cultures to navigate, and sometimes some personalities to manage. I remember being on some conference calls during Laura's presidency where she would, especially when we were planning the Philadelphia conference, where she was a master at speaking on the call with a smile in her voice. And these were pre-Zoom video games days. And sometimes I would wonder if she had a voodoo doll she was quietly jabbing at the time while she was speaking with a smile in her voice. But these were rare moments. And the smile was always matched by the strength of her convictions and her advocacy to be sure that APME's interests were met and that we were equal partners at the table. And, you know, in the end, everything did turn out fine. So we knew that, we knew Laura would stay involved when her term ended as president. And of course she did. And we were so blessed to have her stay involved. Every conference couldn't have happened without her and Carl and Andrew, the voice of God. And I think every president afterwards, they made it look so easy. And then as every president discovered, it really, really wasn't. But Laura was there to do whatever was asked and then some. You know, I think the other presidents who followed her would share my experience that, you know, you could pick up the phone and she could lend a friendly ear, you know, little piece of advice, you know, when you needed it, a reminder to not take things too seriously, and always when we saw you in person to buy you a drink. Linda's going to talk more about News Train, but, you know, having Laura get involved after she left the Daily Historian was just one of those moments of perfection in terms of how things were going to work out. Because, you know, Laura, having come from a small community and a small journalism organization, understood how important they are and how important community journalism is. And she knew that for people attending those news trains, a lot of times that might be the training they got. And, you know, that's why it was so important. And, you know, I will let Linda talk more about that, but, you know, she was just such a positive spark. And one thing I keep thinking about is, you know, the whole concept of a butterfly's wings and, you know, chaos theory and how one person's actions can have ripple effects all over. And truly, I think that's the case with Laura. So many of the things she did, so many of the connections she made, you know, even in our group, we all know how she touched our lives, how she changed our lives. And we know that her effects and the way she touched others are out there beyond what we all could know. And, you know, many people have said Laura was the heart of APME. And when we did go through with the merger for AS&E, I admit I was a little nervous, but as always, she was supportive. If there was sadness, she didn't let on. She was right there as always with her guidance and her being supportive and reassuring. And, you know, it's been odd in the last year not going to conferences and not going to board meetings, and, you know, but I'm glad that we still stayed in touch and that we were texting and reminiscing and got to Zoom occasionally. And I was looking through my old texts with her the other night, and we were reminiscing, and I'm glad I said to her, thank you for changing my life by making me welcome at that conference in St. Louis, because, you know, it really did change my life. And I know she's touched everyone so deeply. So that is, you know, what I will carry away. I know there are probably going to be times in the coming months where I think I need to text her and, you know, won't be able to, but I am grateful for the love and the genuine passion that she brought to everything she did. And it's something that I hope I can keep in my life and carry forward onward. And, you know, you're a part of the family, Carl. You're stuck with all of us. And I'm going to stop now before I lose it. So thank you.
Angie, that was fantastic. And thank you for everything. And that's my dog, Lucy. Welcome to Zooming. Laura and Carl helped guide their company's daily and weekly publications into digital publishing for 14 years before Laura, there goes a lawnmower, returned back to the Historian as managing editor in 2014. And so much of what she did is so influential for all of us in journalism. So while folks can still hear me in suburbia with dogs and mowers going, I'm going to turn things over to Michael Days. He's the president of the News Leaders Association Vice President of the Philadelphia Inquirer. Michael, you got to save me from suburbia here. Can you do it?
I can save you from suburbia, but not today. So listen, I'm a bit embarrassed to say that, the last time I had a one-on-one conversation with Laura, I was sitting in the bar and restaurant at the Holiday Inn. Must have been January, the night before NLA board meeting, and feeling sorry for myself because I had to nurse my Jack Daniels without benefit of a hamburger. It was late, the kitchen was closed. I begged the bartender to make an exception, but to no avail. Laura sitting there too, she heard all of this, said goodnight, then called me shortly after on my cell to see if I was still in the bar. In a few minutes, Carl, of course, arrives with a bag of nuts. And I'm not talking about a little bag of nuts you'd pick up in a corner store. I'm talking about a bag bigger than you'd find at BJ's or Sam's. Now, I only tell that story, and now, a whole lot of folks would say that I should have sucked it up, or go out and find a hamburger, but that's not Laura. I tell that story because it really speaks to her core, to why we were all shocked that someone with so much life, so much joy, who cared so deeply about all of us, could leave us so unexpectedly, and we had to fend for ourselves. Now, she's smart. She was smart, a tactician, a free spirit, a lover of APME and news training, and much more. And we all know that. I know we're going to hear more about all of that tonight. And I know we all appreciate all of those skills. But let's get really real for a minute. Laura showed us that life is an adventure worth jumping into every day. She was pure joy, and that joy embraced us all. Now, I'm sad that she will no longer be here to greet us when we've been physically apart for months with that half bear hug, half happy dance that she had mastered over many, many years. And I'm very sad that a tremendous life force has transitioned without any of us being able to offer a proper farewell. But I will always rejoice in who she was to me, to all of us. And do know that I will celebrate Laura and appreciate Laura all the days of my life. Carl, hang in there. We're all thinking about you.
Thank you.
Michael, that was fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm moving away from the mowers, guys. There's so many of us with so many fantastic stories to share. And I just want to thank and acknowledge all the great work by Kathy to make sure that we're all organized and we all had a good thought of how we're going to move through this difficult time. Linda, I'm looking for you now on this. Linda, are you here?
I'm here. Andrew, could you allow me to share my screen, please?
You should have this. Linda, by the way, was Laura's co-director of APME News Training. She's a journalism educator, former newspaper editor. Y'all all know that. Take it away.
Thank you, Andrew. I don't want to give this speech. I don't want to talk about how super awesome Laura was. Pardon? Although she certainly was super awesome. I want to go back to the way things were when I could pick up the phone and hear her smiling voice and get her wise counsel. I want to be able to email her, as I did more than 1,200 times since 2017, to get her ideas on trainers or share good news about the latest registration numbers. After working on 14 news trains workshops together, I don't want to accept that she will no longer be there as my co-director, my co-conspirator in cooking up excellent training and elevating the practice of journalism. If Laura were here, I think she would tell me in her calm yet positive way that I really need to get a grip. Journalism is based on facts, and the sad truth is that she's not going to answer my call or respond to my email. She would tell me that I need to get to work, that the profession of journalism, to which all of us have dedicated our lives, faces one of the most difficult periods in its history. And the journalists on the front line, fighting for facts, need high quality training to extend their skills and expand their toolkit to do their crucial jobs. Part of Laura's role was to summarize the feedback forms that we collected from attendees after every news train. I know she reveled in the high ratings that News Train consistently received. 4.5 with 5 is extremely helpful and effective. She celebrated not because she wanted to take credit for those scores, but because she knew that what she was doing was helping other journalists and the audiences they served. Here are some quotes that she gleaned from those feedback forms and in which I know she took delight. This one is from Bianca Mujica, a student reporter at the University of North Texas who attended Denton News Train, which was a news train that Laura planned and led. All the topics were relevant and helpful and offered reasonable, accessible, immediate ways to become a better journalist. And this one from Milwaukee News Train, another one that Laura spearheaded, working with Tom Ketting and George Stanley. One attendee was Corinna Curry from the Rockford Register-Star. She said, "Everything is presented in a very easy to understand way with tips on how you can simply start using your new knowledge. Your presenters were awesome. I felt like I got a real top-notch day of education that really focused on the latest trends." Or from Greenville, South Carolina, the news train there, Laura worked with Catrice Hardy, and the staffers from the Chattanooga Times Free Press were among those who benefited. As its editor, Allison Gerber, put it, "My staff members who attended the Greenville News Train session raved about how useful and informative it was. They came back fired up, brimming with ideas. So bravo, and thank you." Indeed, Laura, bravo and thank you. And thank you, Carl, for aiding and abetting her in all these efforts. So, my friends, how can we honor Laura's dedication to elevating journalism and helping other journalists? In her wise and caring way, I believe she would say to all of us, get to work. Keep helping other journalists get the training and mentorship that they need so that they can provide their communities with the facts, the context, and the storytelling they so desperately require. As hard as she worked, Laura also excelled at incorporating play into all she did. Can you say flip or Sasquatch or super awesome trading cards? So I'm sure she would also tell us, please don't forget to have fun along. So as she closed so many of her emails to me, I say to all of you, onward.
Thank you, Linda. What fantastic memories, and what amazing things to bring back such warm thoughts and feelings. I've got to go next after summer, so I'm gonna try to pause for a second. But I've been trying to tell the story of everything Laura did at the Astorian in between speakers. when she returned as managing editor, that's also about the time she rose to be president of APME in 2016. The paper described that as a coup for an editor of a small town newspaper. And yeah, I think it was. I mean, she really, she represented for so many. And what an instrumental time that she brought about her service to our organization. And I know we've touched on so many of these things. Summer Moore, former APME board member, we all know Summer. Now she's got a fancy title with the USA Today Network. You know, she's doing fantastic work. She's now Senior Project and Communications Manager for USA Network. And Summer, why don't you share your thoughts?
Bring that here, comfortable chair.
Thanks, Andrew. Okay, I'm gonna do my best. I'm gonna have to read because it keeps me focused. So, Laura was a dedicated journalist. She was also really smart about the future. She saw early that print wasn't gonna sustain us, so she jumped into the digital side of things long before we were forced to do that. She was one of very few female journalists who made the transition into development and product side of the business because the industry needed her too. She inspired me to do this work. As many of you know, I became a part of APME as Sally Jacobson's assistant many years ago. Sally immediately introduced me to Laura because Laura was the board member who ran the website, the newsletter, anything that had to do with digital. Even when she wasn't on the board, because of her digital savvy, she ended up being our web wizard and our newsletter curator. She dealt with payments, membership, complaints, things that no one else took the time to learn, including me. Laura, Carl, and I became friends over many years of APME meetings and conferences. It was often the three of us trying to put together slideshows at the last minute before a conference. In fact, I was laughing this morning as I was putting together her tribute because I was watching 4 different editors go through a draft, and then somebody would undo the thing that the person before them did, and then another person would undo that and redo it. And I just thought she would laugh at that. She would have just cracked up. She knew what it was like to work with a bunch of editors. She put up with the biggest egos in our business with a smile and a wink. I will miss that wink. I'll miss her for so many reasons. Many have already been mentioned. She talked big journalism problems and solutions with me. She fired me up and gave me that journalism juju that means so much to me. When I had no hope, when I was ready to leave journalism for good, Laura always reminded me why we do this. When I couldn't deal with someone, she always talked me down. She embodied authenticity, something I will strive for in her honor. As you all know, she was the most generous person on earth. When I had to pay my own way to an APME conference, she always found a way to get my flight and hotel covered. Then her and Carl would make sure I was fed and watered. Every major milestone in my life has been preceded by a conversation with Laura. She gave me so much. What meant the most to me was her time. She would meet with me anytime, any place. She was my first text. I hope she knew how much she meant to me, how much I wish I had visited her in Astoria, how much I had seen her with barley and copper. After Sally passed, Laura was very upset. They had a really special bond. So now I choose to picture them together, surrounded by Harley and Bogey and the puppies, playing games and laughing. I love you, Laura, and will miss you dearly.
Oh, wow, Summer, I got to follow that. Holy cow. Summer, you need to know how much Laura, and I know you know this, and Carl can back me up, I think all we can, how much pride Laura had in your accomplishments and your rise, how much we appreciated. You know, those of us who work the AV table, guys, I mean, all y'all are highfalutin executives. If it was Carl, me, Summer, that all of you folks, when you know, rose to power and authority, you know, we had to go clean up all your stuff. And, you know, there kind of became sort of this sort of bond that we all had on the AV table to try to make things work. Summer, you were always there. Thank you. You know, Kathy asked me to do this, thinking I'd probably bring some amazing speech to this. I tried to write something out. It all felt wrong. What I kept on smelling were gin and tonics. In my mind, I kept on smelling gin and tonics because Carl and I love beer, and Carl and I would drag Laura to beer joints across the United States. There you go, Carl. We would drag Laura to beer joints across the United States. And, you know, she never complained. She just had her gin and tonics. And, you know, I'm looking at DJ Mitchell now, and I'm looking at Rich Luna and Ronnie Agnew. They're the guys that got me in APME. And thank you for doing that. Thanks for helping me get in that. Because if I hadn't had EJ Mitchell as my boss saying, you know, Andrew, when you go off to Montgomery as managing editor, the first thing you need to do is get into APME, I would have never met any of you guys. So thanks, EJ. But it was Laura that kept me in APME.
Oh no.
Andrew, please come back to us.
Come back, Andrew.
Don't leave
Welcome
us
to
now.
Zoom.
Apparently, God
please
had
talk
enough
amongst
of this
yourselves.
whole
Technical
God thing.
difficulties.
I think Laura did that. I think Laura did that.
Must have been the beer, Carl.
That'll teach him for calling us all highfalutin.
That's right.
Hey, you guys are highfalutin. It was the AV folks that kept those conferences going. You know, Laura would text you and she'd say, Terry, your speaker has not shown up. You have 2 minutes to rectify this situation. And then you're up and you're running. And then she comes back and she's already got the speaker in tow and she's telling the person how lovely they look and thank you for coming and plenty of time and on and on and on. And just makes it all, she made it all just perfect. And, you know, we couldn't have done what we did all those years. So I'm sorry, I've interrupted.
Nice
Welcome
save,
back,
Terry.
Andrew.
You know, hey, you know, everybody needs a Terry.
Are you back, Andrew?
I don't know. I
He
don't know.
is
I don't know if I could say all that again, guys. I got to be really honest with you. I don't know where I'm going to leave off and where I'm going to begin. So I'm just going to start. And I hope EJ heard me telling EJ, give me a signal. You at least heard me.
You
nod to you.
Where you left off was your childhood in the cabin.
Just don't go back to highfalutin, okay?
I'd like now to talk about the first grade if I could. Well, I'm going to wrap things up because, you know, Terry probably said better things than I could. Laura always made me feel involved and special. Carl always and Laura were, you know, we were each other's wingmen at APME. We connected, we made things happen for this conference. I loved that woman. I love her now. And you know, life is not fair. I totally get that. It's not fair that I can't call her anymore. It's not fair that she's not going to give me grief on Facebook. It's not fair that she's not going to basically be there when we need her, because she was always there when I needed her. Carl, thank you for giving her to us. Thank you for being a partner with us at APME. Thank you for sharing her with us. I posted on Facebook, you know, we say things like rest in peace and may her memory be a blessing. That all feels really crappy. I don't have any good that I can add to that, other than just to say she'll always be with me and always be a part of who I am and what I do. And Carl, I'm always there for you too. So thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. Not very sophisticated, by God. The voice of God gets cut off by the Zoom gods himself. So Sarah Nordgren is the deputy managing editor at APME. She takes train wrecks like me and makes them into coherent copy and makes the Associated Press work. So Sarah, for the love of God, take this show from me.
Thank you, Andrew. I just want to start by saying how wonderful it is to see everybody here. And, you know, as difficult as the past few days has been, it's heartening to know how many people Laura touched in such profound ways. And I'm honored to be here tonight and thinking about her. Laura took my hand in 2015 when I became executive director of APME, and I had big shoes to fill. Sally Jacobson had retired after a long and very storied, influential period as the executive director, and Laura was the incoming president. I didn't know very much about what I was doing, but Laura took my hand, but like pulled me along. I flew out to Oregon to meet her and to talk with her, and we spent a couple of days just talking and getting up to speed, and a couple drinks might have been involved. And you know, I did learn the nuts and the bolts. What was the foundation's relationship to the APME, and how were contests run and winners announced, and but I also, the lesson that really stuck was the ethos of the organization and the collaboration and the support of members and the industry. And I learned that Laura's kindness and generosity was really right at the center of that. I mean, from the moment that I met her. I really don't think you can overstate the importance of Laura to both APME and the industry. You know, what Linda was talking about, I think, you know, we are at such and have been at such a pivotal time in our industry for, you know, a decade now. And Laura's dedication to Newstrain in particular in the past few years, and in helping ensure that young journalists who probably don't have very many opportunities for high caliber training got it, and got it good. So, you know, her tireless work ethic and support, and that throaty laugh, you know, all week I've been like hearing it in my head, that low throaty laugh that just, you know, was Laura. She worked with APME to help make it better. She was a friend to the AP. She was a friend to APME. She was my friend, and we are really going to miss her.
Sarah, thank you. Thank you so much. And I saw Kathleen Carroll on this, And Paula Froke, I don't want you to think I forgot about you. I wanted to group the AP a little bit together, so you're not off the hook. If you get to see me be all boohoo and cry, you're gonna have to come forward as well. Paula, of course, the former executive director of APME and the editor of the AP style book I teach in my class. Paula, the floor is yours.
Okay, I won't get all snivelly. You know, really, it occurs to me that I have known Laura, or I had known Laura substantially for less time than any of the rest of you. It's just been 3 years, pretty much, I think, right about now, that I got involved. And despite it being only 3 years, it seems like a lifetime, and it seems like I had known Laura forever. And I just, as I know all of us, we just can't come to grips with this. It doesn't seem real. You know, I still can't imagine a world without Laura in it. It's just not a possible thing. But, you know, she goes and cuts Andrew off. So we know that she does stay with us. But she was, you know, what more can be said? She was such a force, but in such a kind and gentle sort of way. She just infused all of us with her spirit. And she changed APME, as people have said, and she changed, I think, each of us as people in some way, and as professionals. And as we all know, there was really nothing that she couldn't or wouldn't do. And some of you have talked about the high level journalism that she was involved in, and being a force of nature in that. She also, at the other end of it, was down to the very nitty gritty, and she epitomized what APME was all about, as in the part of just getting it done. We can think the big thoughts all we want, but Laura was also about just doing the work. A couple of small stories, very small in relation to everything else, but I think also very telling, especially with the timing. Tom Ketting and I were having a late night call earlier this week, and we were trying to decide what mailing address to use for donations to the APME Foundation in Laura's name. Okay, think about that. We were talking about what mailing address. Of course, if Laura had been on the call, if Laura had been with us, she would have suggested very gently, hey guys, you know, you could simply use the existing Newstrain donation link for these donations. And of course, who created that link years ago? That was Laura. And I'll send that link around later. You know, and at the same time, when Jim, yesterday or the day before, when Jim Simon was looking for someone to design the tribute page for Laura, you can guess what he said. That's something Laura would have done. I mean, without Laura, even in her time off the board, which she was, you know, long off the board during my entire time, but she was not only the heart and soul, but the absolute mover and shaker, and the one who made everything happen. She was absolutely essential to me and to APME. During the 3 years or so I served as APME executive director. And as you all know, this is the time when the APME and ASNE were greatly intensifying the merger talks, and then ultimately merged to become the News Leaders Association, and then moved on to transition to the new organization. Of course, Jim and Angie were cornerstones of this effort during their presidential terms, but I think it's more than safe to say that all three of us were forever saying, probably in every conversation, you know, well, Laura probably knows whatever, or Laura could track this down, or Laura could ask, or Laura knows how to do this. It was all Laura. I don't think we could have functioned without Laura, and it's probably correct to say that the merger probably wouldn't have happened without Laura, in all of her behind the scenes actual work, and also the moral support that she gave all of us in helping through what at times was very difficult. To see the end of this organization that everyone loves so well, but to see it go forward into a new and even greater organization that is so much needed during these times. And she was the biggest supporter of all of that. She was just invariably the solution of whatever the problem was. And she was the cheeriest damn solution you could ever imagine. And I will add that Carl and Andrew might love their beers, but I am particularly impressed about Laura's love, not only for gin and tonics, but specifically Tanqueray. When I first met her and we had the Tanqueray, she ordered a Tanqueray, I thought, thank God, this woman she's gonna be okay, life will be okay. And speaking of Carl, her love for Carl and her partnership with him, that in itself, I think, was such a gift to all of us. Just that commitment that they had to each other. They just radiated love for each other and for everything that they did. We can, I think, at least be grateful for the fact that Laura lived her life so very fully. She truly and absolutely seized the moment along with Carl. They made the most of it, of the time that they had. And I think in her own way, in some way, she is here helping all of us through all of this.
Paula, thank you. So Kathy has been tabbed to be the anchor of our prepared speakers, but I'm peering over my glasses because that's what we do in higher education. And I'm looking at you, Karen Magnuson. I'm looking at you, Donna Reed. I'm looking at you, Alan English. I'm looking at you, Tom and George. And I'm looking at Allison and Mark Baldwin and Ann and Dennis. And I'm not going to call everybody out on this call, but I want y'all to start thinking about something, because I am going to call you out. I want you to say something, even if it's just a cry like me as a blubbering little baby. And you know, Paula, you're right. I think Laura is the reason my internet went out. I really think Laura not only arranged for my internet to go out, Laura arranged for the guy to mow the lawn across the way. Laura arranged for my dog to chase that cat. I think everything, Carl, this is all Laura, because it is an AV challenge. She wanted to basically see if I could crack and wanted to see who would come to my rescue. And it was Terry that came to my rescue. So, okay, Terry, you win this. So, you know, Kathy, I've thanked Kathy at the beginning of this. I'm going to thank Kathy at the end of our formal presentations. I've warned all of you that I've talked to and others. Get ready. Kathy, a former APME board member. She's now in higher education, like me, at the Howard Center for Investigative Journalism at the University of Maryland. It is her hyper secure Zoom link that we are in right now that requires like retinal scans for us to enter. So Kathy, take it away. And you gotta unmute, Kathy.
Kathy, you're on mute.
You gotta unmute.
See, now you know why I needed Andrew to help with this, because it could have been a disaster if it were just me. So that is reason number one. Stop thanking me, because he's doing the hard work. And number two, this was truly a labor of love. So I want to take a minute to say that I'm so glad that members of Carl and Laura's family are here for this virtual memorial. We hope you find comfort in the outpouring of love for Laura and for Carl, the love of her life and her partner in crime. We hope too that you accept the warm embrace from Laura's other family, the ever passionate, sometimes cynical, mostly entertaining, and always interesting journalists who spend their lives trying to tell other people's stories fairly and well. That's what Laura's life was dedicated to, and she did it. She did a damn good job of it. Laura specialized in opening her arms to pull people into this second journalism family. She was unmatched at transforming colleagues into friends. That superpower of hers, as you've heard, changed lives, mine included. She knew that being an editor can be hard and often lonely, that we sometimes have to make difficult decisions and do really unpleasant things. But she never dwelled on that, and she wouldn't let the rest of us do it either, because she also knew that journalism at its best can be joyous, can make the world better, and can be the most fun that you can have without getting arrested. And Carl, I'm not going to ask if she ever got arrested, because sometimes it's better not to know. She made sure that we celebrated that together whenever we met, leading the way on new adventures, and keeping most of us up way too late. In short, Laura embraced the notion of journalism as family. She knew that we needed each other and that we were better together. She and Carl set the example for that. They always had each other's backs and they got things done. That's why the news of her death hit us all so hard. It was a death in the family, and it struck to the core. Thank you, Laura, for bringing us together and for nurturing this family. We will miss you always, treasured colleague, friend, and sister.
All right, Kathy, you're good. You know, Michael, I wasn't in favor of this NLA thing, FYI. Laura sat me down and said, listen, Andrew, shut the hell up. she said, this is the right thing to do, and here's why. And you need to keep quiet. Because, you know, Michael and Angie are doing the right things and they're going to save this thing. And old people like you just need to move aside. And you know what? What I love about Laura was she always saw the right thing. She saw the big thing. She saw the greater good in all of us. She saw something in me that I didn't see that I was capable of.
I know. So put it closer.
And this is where I'm going to turn to each of you. I want you, Zoom collective, the hive mind here that are assembled here for Carl and all of us. Let's start sharing some thoughts. You know, we've not rehearsed this, which just means this could be utter chaos because we're all type A people and we'll all talk at the same time. Someone want to raise their hand and begin this? And I'm looking at Alan English, who's raising a glass. Alan?
That's what I was thinking. We should raise a glass if you've got one.
I do have one.
For the 2-for-1 experience, it was Carl and Laura who gave us energy, more energy than we knew we had, could get, you know, we could do with. It'd be late at night, right? And we'd be like, oh, it's about time to turn in. No, it was just getting started. And I think some of the trouble I got into is because of Laura.
No, I think it's mostly you, but Laura could be a supporting cast member.
But to them.
Here, here.
Here.
Here, here.
We should point out that it's really, really early in Hawaii, Jim, or are you no longer in Hawaii?
I'm dreaming about being in Hawaii because it was pouring rain here for the last 3 days. So.
Oh. At least the smoke is gone.
That's right. And it's sunny again. So.
Jim, I wore my Hawaiian shirt today in honor of
me.
You, not you, but Laura, because she would wear one tonight.
Yep.
Celebrate.
Well, Andrew, this is Rich. If I can jump in, I have a family here in a little bit. So good to see so many colleagues from over the years, and I know that you know, Laura was very special to me as well. I mean, she grew up just down the road from me. I'm from El Paso, and she grew up in Las Cruces, and she had so many Texas ties, and we were part of that Northwest media when I was a managing editor in Salem, and she was just right up the road. So such a beautiful person and such a special person, always friendly smile and always a helping hand and great advice and a mentor in so many ways. You know, Carl, our hearts are with you and Laura and our APME family, and Just wanted to share a few thoughts. And again, she will be missed, but she will not be forgotten.
Thank you, Rich. It's so good to see you.
You too.
So I want to note that when news spread the other day of Laura's passing, so many of the emails kind of carried a similar message. So many of us felt the same way about her. So many people mentioned that when they first met Laura and when they first became a part of APME, she was so welcoming. And I think that's such a tribute to her. She didn't know a stranger, and she had this ability to just make everyone feel welcome and comfortable. And she was so genuine and authentic. And that was such a big deal. You know, like when I showed up at my first APME meeting, I didn't know anyone. And it felt like everyone knew everyone else, but I didn't know anyone. And then Laura came over and talked to me. And the next thing we were bonding over dog stories. And I mean, she just had this unique ability, and I'm so grateful that I knew her for the past 5 years. I didn't know her as long as you guys did, but I feel so enriched by having known her for the past 5 years. I have the little flip that she gave me sitting on my desk at work, and I will think of her one day when I eventually get back in the newsroom. I will be so grateful to see it, and it will remind me of her. And Carl, I just want you to know, you have my deepest sympathies. And I always so admired how you and Laura were such a team and how much support you had for each other. I mean, I really, that's such a special thing. And I just want you to know that I'm thinking of you. I'm sending prayers and positive thoughts your way. And Laura was a truly magnificent person, and I'm so deeply sad that she isn't here. But I know that she leaves the world, you know, to be corny and cliche about it, she touched all of us, and she, you know, she leaves the world better than when she found it.
I can go next. I was just looking down at my phone, and you know the background on my phone screen is a $2 uncashed win ticket from the Belmont when American Pharoah won.
I remember that. I remember that.
Well, who was I with? I was with Angie Muse and Carl.
It was an awesome day.
It was, and there was a fourth person who was supposed to be there, and that was Laura. But Laura remained back at headquarters, I believe, still judging photos or something like that. Yeah. She was working on board business, and so she missed this epical moment in American sports history. But Carl and Angie and I had a great time, I'll tell you that. But I think that goes to her dedication to the group and her love for the group. You know, the only other thing I would say is that, as I reflected, is that, you know, the message is going back and forth over the past few days. I realized that the folks on all these emails were some of my favorite people in the world. And you know, that's her business. That's her doing, because she brought us all into this thing and sustained it. And I can't think of a more fitting tribute. You know, this is a time, you know, I'm really talking to Carl, I guess, that there are no answers. Presence is more fundamental than answers. And I think you know that everybody here is glad to be present to you by email or phone call or however you need it. So be kind to yourself, and you'll be in our prayers and our thoughts. So be well.
Thank you.
Andrew, this is Karen.
Hi, Karen.
First of all, I just want to say that Laura has been on my mind ever since I heard the news. I haven't been able to think of much anything else. because she's such a part of me. And when I try to talk to people who don't know or haven't had the pleasure to know her, the way I describe her to others is that being around her is like experiencing Christmas all year long. She's like the star at the top of the tree, the brightest light. And it's forever shining. And whenever I saw Laura, or whenever I exchanged telephone calls or texts, or even when I'm looking at the Facebook posts, those wonderful, wonderful photos and videos of the dogs, and how much joy both you, Carl, and how much joy you get from them. I feel that Christmas coming out of the photos and the videos. The love that she exuded was really different and special, and I hear it repeated in various ways from all of the speakers, beautiful tributes. Carl, I just want you to know that if you look at the number of people here, they're all from different generations of APME. So Suki referenced like the 25 years. There are people here from like the early days of APME, and then medium days of APME, and then the later days of APME, with some people just having had the pleasure of knowing her for the last 3 years. That just shows how much she touched every single person that she met. And it wasn't just Laura, it was you, Carl. I was able to get to know you just as well because of your love for each other and the support that you had for each other. And when I think of Laura, I think of you at the same time because you were always by her side. The two of you were inseparable. So I'm hoping that you know that this APME family, from all of these different generations, some of us older than others, we are all here for you. We will always be here for you. And our hearts go out to you and your entire family. And my heart also goes out to every single member of the APME family, because clearly this is an epic loss, not just for Carl, you and your family, but for the entire news industry. Thank you.
Andrew, this is Ronnie.
Hey, Ronnie. Hey, there you
one
are.
of those guys who Karen just talked about, who has been there from the very beginning with Laura. While some of us played, Laura was working. She, and sometimes I would tell her, I said, Laura, talk to me about something other than journalism. Because I mean, she was one of the first digital people I've ever met in my life. She knew the future. She saw it before we saw it. And I got to tell you that sitting on that bus sometimes, because AP took such great care of us in New York all those years at Rockefeller Center, when we would walk past all the sites that we all dreamed of seeing. I mean, we would talk about the dogs and we would talk about Carl, and we would just talk about life on those motorcycles and all the things that she wanted to do outside of journalism. And someone said earlier, she lived a full life. We're the same age, 57 years old. And I thought I would have Laura for many more years. It was one of those things that assumption that you make, the kind of friend that you don't have to talk to every day, but you know that you're a friend. You can call at any time and they'll be there for you. That was Laura. I thought Laura could do anything, guys. We were at the new office at AP when AP moved to the financial district, and Laura fell. You guys remember when she fell?
Yes.
And I
Yeah,
said, get
I
up,
remember.
Laura. You can walk. Get up. There's nothing wrong. You can do this. And it turns out her foot was broken, and I'm trying to get her to walk. I mean, it was because I thought she could just do anything because she is the heart and soul of APME, and she always will be. But more than anything, she's my friend, and I'm gonna miss my friend. I see all these people on this call, and I go back to the days when we were in a hotel room at a Super Bowl party, and I think the New York Giants were playing in the Super Bowl, and Janet Jackson had a wardrobe malfunction, and I fell on the floor, and Laura had to come revive me. I mean, I'm thinking about all those days that she endured Carl and his beer ventures and all those other things about her life. But I'll miss my friend. Carl, I want you to know I love both of you. Gosh, over the last 25 years of getting to know you guys has been just a great honor in my life. And that my friend is gone. The thing that someone said a minute ago, and this is so true, is I will always carry her with me. I will never forget that smile because it never left her face. No matter all the work that she had to do in front of the scenes and behind the scenes, that smile was always there. And that'll remain with me for the rest of my life. So Carl, yes, I'm thinking about you, but I'm thinking about me too, because I lost my friend, a friend who I love dearly. Thank you, guys.
Well said.
Thank you, Ronnie.
Yeah. Andrew, it's Donna.
Oh, hey, boss.
Stop it. I honestly, when Karen was talking about older people, I thought she was prompting me to speak up. Carl, when they say people walk in a room, some people can walk in a room and light it up. To me, when Laura walked in a room, any room, ballroom, meeting room, APME meeting, she warmed it up. To me, there was this super genuine warmth to her that even if you didn't know her very well, and I got to know her very well back in the day, you got to know her very quickly because she was like a magnet. You just wanted to know her and her warmth. And the other thing that she did talk about journalism all the time. That was awesome, to use her word, that was super awesome. But she also, to me, I admired her so much for how she so clearly understood community journalism and the connection that good, strong journalism has to a community, no matter the size, big market, small market. This woman knew people, and she knew the importance of the journalism to those people and the people in your community. And I know you will miss her. We will all, as her APMA family, miss her because there was this warmth about her. And it came through everything that Karen said. I'd see her on Facebook and I'd see her with the dogs, and it was just love and warmth coming off those Facebook pages and those photographs. So, and honestly, I don't know that sometimes I saw her without you, Carl, but a lot of times you were together, and that's another memory of mine is your devotion to one another. My anniversary is today, and your relationship with Laura, your devotion and your love for one another, which was so apparent to everybody, and how you helped her and were always there to help everybody like she did. I so admired that. I so love to watch you two in action. I think you don't know how much you as a couple lifted us up, and Laura, to me, lifted everybody up. So my deepest sympathies to you all and to all my APME family. I love you all, and I'm so grateful, Kathy, that you put this together. It means everything. Love you, Carl.
Thank you,
Donna. That was remarkable. And Carl, let's just take a deep breath here for a second and think about how remarkable this day is. This call is. EJ's is broadcasting in from Puerto Rico. Jim,
Right.
Seattle. Karen, New York. Kathy in the Northwest too, Donna, Florida, me in Tennessee. We're all over the country. This is, leave it to Laura. Leave it to Laura to invent the first APME virtual memorial service.
Amen.
I mean, how about that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Laura invented the first one of these. I mean, how awesome is that? I mean, wow. So, all right, I'm looking at Alan Miller. He's touching his face, which is not COVID compliant. And Alan, one of the things I had in the slideshow was that shot of Laura hugging you. I know she meant a lot to you.
Yeah, absolutely did. And for all the reasons that everybody's mentioned, I mean, she was a guiding light for all of us in APME. She was a kindred spirit. She was also so much fun. And I'm sitting here with a Tanqueray and tonic tonight. I'm also thinking of a moment in, I think it was Chicago, when we had an ASNE APME joint conference, and the auction was going on. You were trying very desperately to talk over a crowd that was more engaged in beers and conversation than the auction. And I don't know if you know this, Andrew, but in the background, we were getting ready to auction one of the famous Magruder scarves, and it slipped into the candle on the table. I know. There were three of us sitting at the table, and we smelled something and realized what had happened. And Laura was absolutely horrified. All of us were horrified. But Laura said, "No matter what, I am buying this." Because,
oh my God.
Yeah, because no one else can know that a flame touched this. And so, honestly, at this point, I can't remember who bought it, but Laura tried desperately to buy it so that no one would know that a flame had touched this rare and beautiful artifact. So I hope I'm not divulging some deep dark secret that spoils someone's Magruder original, but it was so like Laura to say, we can't let this get in the way of a good evening or disrupt our auction. I'll buy it. Carl, you may know. Did she buy that one?
I'm checking mine now.
If I may interject, I think that's when Andrew began to up the bidding.
I think she ended up buying it.
Thank you, Carl, for sharing her with us and for setting a great example for all of us in how to be great partners and great journalists, and to do it with all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Leave it to Alan to break some news. I didn't know any of that, and that Chicago auction just about killed me. Actually, FYI. Hey, I'm looking down at Tom, who's like Rich, has got that COVID beard going on and rocking it really well. What do you got to say, Tom?
Actually, I think I saw Dennis trying to speak earlier. Dennis, did you want to talk?
Dennis, go for it. Hey, Dennis is a partner in crime with a lot of Laura's things here, guys. I mean,
well, that's my story. Ronnie, you talked about how at conferences that Laura and Carl and I know Summer were always working really hard on those videos and other things that needed to happen for the conferences. And But I always knew when I wasn't ready for my night to be over, that I could call her or text her and I would find a place to go, because there was always some bar or some type of place that
White Castle
was sharing beers, and we had no problem with pre-COVID to share a beer and see if what we liked in that. But her nights never ended. It seemed like it went right from the night to the next day's morning. She was always ready to go and wonder what we're going to do that next night. So I'll always appreciate her. She's the one who Carol Tarrant talked to me about joining the board, and I'm so glad I did that to run for the board. But Laura was the first one to bring me on and to sit down and talk to me and talk about what you could bring to the organization and all that. And I look around and I see these are all my friends, and I love y'all. Thanks.
Holy cow, Dennis.
I do have to say, though, I don't know, Dennis, how she felt about the White Castle.
White Castle, right?
So Sally, you're sitting there, you're kind of like quietly watching all of this. You got something to say?
There are two Sallys. Which one?
Oh, Sally Stapleton. But you're right. We do have two Sallys. So Sally 1 and Sally 2. Not trying to make any priority order here. So y'all just follow on.
So, she was kind of I don't have the long decades of memories, and I feel a little jilted here. She was the documentarian of what we did.
Mm-hmm.
And you knew she would catch nice moments between people on the board, and all we had to do was wait till that evening and she'd post them on Facebook. I always liked that. And Sarah Nordgren gave me the news. Lately with all of us so spread apart, those darn Slack pings can be really annoying. But Sarah pinged me at, I don't know, it was in the early evening, saying she'd just gotten the most awful news.
Yeah. Wow.
The first thing I did was go to my Gmail, because I knew that's where all my back and forth with Laura was. And I had funny things, funny phrases, funny words. No matter what we were talking about, she'd respond with something funny. They were always fun. Email can be work or it can be fun, and she made it fun. And that's kind of what I think about. That this mission that we all do, that we hold so dear, that some of us have done for decades. The bottom line of all of this is when you're involved in that mission on a big story or trying to make something better, it's all about the fun of camaraderie. It's what journalism is when it's good, and she embodied that. So Carl, love and respect for who you are, what you gave to her, and what you've shared with all of us.
Thanks, Sally. That's awesome. Sally Hale, you got anything to add?
We're having some technical problems. I don't know if you can hear me. I couldn't get the video to work, but you can hear me. I got to know Laura when I first came to Oregon as news editor for AP back in the 80s. And we consequently ran into her with News Train. And when APME came to Philadelphia, I was a bureau chief in Philadelphia at the time, and a few years ago. When we moved back here to retire a year ago, she was one of the very first people that I contacted. And I'm so glad that my husband Rick and I had a chance to have lunch with Laura and Carl. And, she was the best. She was unforgettable. Such a positive life force, and I miss her. And Carl, we'll be in touch. We'll come out to Astoria, and we'll.
I was glad I got to meet her, Carl. That once or twice that we get to visit with you guys, and it's a terrible thing. But we're thinking of you, buddy.
Yeah, yeah,
Thank
our
you.
love.
All right, Tom, I don't want to make you feel like I let you off the hook.
No, but I'm going to hand off one more time.
Yeah, I mean,
Carl, I'm just going to keep doing it.
You're going to have to talk, Tom.
Carl, can you share the story you shared with me the other night about when you and Laura were kind of dating, but nobody knew it? And and then your boss came about the jobs? That's as far as I'll go, and you have to tell the story.
Oh, this is
Okay.
This is
Yeah,
scoop.
we were no, I'm not. Okay, I'm unmuted. When Laura and I met, she was working at SMU and I was working for the printing company that produced the newspaper. And so we had some interaction a little bit. And we had started dating largely because the director's secretary kept saying, "Carl, don't you think Laura's really cute? Wouldn't you like to take Laura out?" So, we started dating, and then the director decided that he needed somebody to help the students get out on time because they had a problem meeting their deadline. So they contracted me from my printing company to come down there and work with the students to try to get them out on time, and did that for a semester or two. And then, they decided that they didn't want to contract me anymore, that they really wanted me just full time. So the director talked to me and said, "Would you be interested in this job?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'd be very interested in that." And so he went to Laura and he said, "Do you think you can work with Carl? If we hire him to do this portion of the job, do you think he can work with Carl?" And she said, "Yeah, but you might want to know we're getting married in 2 months." We've been dating the entire time, and there was 2 people in the office that knew we had been dating. And it was the director's secretary who set us up, and the ad manager, who was Laura's best friend. So they had to scramble just a little bit and change the position so that I didn't work under Laura.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. I think, like so many of you, I don't think of one vignette. I think of like 40, and they all sort of crash together and bounce off of each other. I remember when I really was just getting to know Laura and Carl, and I'm going to guess it was Chicago, the famous auction we were talking about just a moment ago. And they were auctioning off a Harley Davidson leather jacket, and Carl and Laura kept bidding on it. And then as I stood next to them, I realized this was all sort of a charade, and they were basically trying to see how high they could get Bob Heyman to go. And as soon as Bob got high enough, then Carl just said, "Oh, that's okay. I didn't want to spend that much anyway." And that was it. And it was just classic. And I'm just kind of standing next to him going, these people are really funny. I mean, they had gotten Bob up at least a few hundred more than he ever planned on going. And as near as I could tell, it was all part of the master plan. The other one that comes to mind, Dennis, you were talking about going out at night. I remember early on we were going out somewhere in New York, and of course we walked down a block where there was a White Castle, and Dennis said, "Oh, I got to stop." And it was my the first time that I encountered Dennis's affection for White Castles. And so he went in. None of us wanted to go in with him. He went in. He came out about 30 seconds later and said, empty-handed. And I said, where's your burgers? And he goes, "I think I'm going to take a pass. It's a little too urine-y smelling." And I was walking with Laura, and I kind of turned to her and I said, a little too urine-y? Like some urine is okay? And she just sort of muttered, just keep walking. Don't say a word. Just keep walking. And it was just awesome. Nobody, okay, fine. Whatever Laura says, I'm not going to say a word. We just keep walking. Little too urine-y. When I was working on the death notice the other night, and Carl was kind enough to help with a lot of the details, and at the end of the call, of course, I said, thanks for everything. I think I've got everything I need. And he said, well, don't hesitate to call back. And I said, fine, but I won't need anything more. Of course, I hung up the phone, immediately thought of something I forgot to ask, called him back, and Carl answered the phone and just said, 45 seconds. Well, that was pretty good, Tom. But in the course of that evening, I talked to Steve Forrester, who works at the Astoria. And Steve said what he really admired, and you may have read this too, was Laura's emotional intelligence, is what he called it. Her ability to read people and kind of sense what they needed. And you know, we joke about the super awesome. I put in the obit that she had a unique ability to sort of bestow that on people who maybe had done a lot of work that not a lot of other people had noticed. And I thought that was incredibly insightful of Steve, that she had that emotional intelligence. And my own experience with it was we did the news train. Linda Austin got us kicked off to do the news train in Milwaukee last year. And then Linda, you went to semester at sea, I think, is that right? Yeah. And so Laura stepped in and helped us come down the home stretch and get it across the finish line. And I was pretty emotionally invested in it by the end. And we had a really strong conference. And then there was one more later in the year, and that was in Albuquerque. And that would close out the year. So I was just in touch with Laura about different things. And I said, how's the plans for Albuquerque going? And she responded. And then a week later, I'd ask her about, hey, I need receipts for something. And then I'd say, hey, what's the attendance in Albuquerque looking like? And she responded. And another week goes by, and I asked we were communicating about something. I said, I wanted to see the reviews from ours. And I said, Albuquerque looking okay? And by this point, she had that emotional intelligence to realize that I wanted ours to be better than Albuquerque, damn it. And I really needed that. And I couldn't say it, but the day after the Albuquerque news train, I sent her an email saying, hey, I was thinking of you yesterday. How did it go? And I got a very quick message back saying, it was great, but you were better. Take a breath, relax. And I thought, okay, she knew all along. She knew all along. I'm still the 5-year-old who needs a gold star. So when Steve talked about emotional intelligence, I knew exactly what he was talking about. I'll close with something a lot of other people have mentioned, but I'm going to say it anyway. When my mom passed away, my dad died first, and then when my mom passed away, one of my cousins said at the funeral that he thought that one of the great things she had done was helped my dad be the man he was intended to be. And I thought of that so much this week that I think, Carl, you and Laura helped each other be the people you were intended to be. And I admire the hell out of that. So thank you for that.
Oh, great, Tom. Yeah, to make me
Thank
cry.
I just wanted to say a couple of brief things. So much has been said today, and I had an incredible honor to get to read many of the tributes that people sent in and the sort of common threads in all of that about Laura. And I began to think of Laura a lot as sort of the connective thread for APME, but really the bunch of friends, many of them are here. And I think Mark said this earlier in one of the things he wrote, or as a tribute. Many of the people are on this phone call, and many of the people that I met through APME, and that many of the people really, that in many ways Laura connected with me or made me work with or brought me on to do things, have come to be certainly some of my best friends in journalism and now some of my best friends in life. And I'm incredibly grateful for that. And I think I was fortunate too, in some ways, because I lived in the same corner of the world as Carl and Laura, that I got a chance to see them on their home turf in Astoria, and they came up to Seattle every now and then, and we went to Mariners game, or to a Mariners game, where Laura made sure we were sitting sort of in the only place where you could drink gin and tonics.
Yeah.
A lousy game, but I don't remember it by the end of it because we had such a great time. And the other thing about Laura, I think, is somebody talked about her emotional intelligence, and I'd also add to that, which I think is part and parcel with that, was her judgment. And it was incredible sometimes in a room full of egos and people, you know, with some bigger egos and things, among some editors and things like that. Laura always was not only the cool head, but the sort of calming and warming head. And when I was president during the merger year, the year we put together the merger, there were some tense moments, and there were a few people who weren't really in favor of that, I think, Andrew, who, you know, I'd hear from a lot and get a lot of grief, and there were points where things would almost fall apart. But Laura was, as somebody said, you'd go to her and she'd sort of put on that smile, and she had that great laugh. I don't know if she literally ever said, but her whole attitude was onward and keep going, her and Angie, really. And, you know, she was just a remarkable partner for all of us, as well as a remarkable friend, I think, as well. And, you know, my sympathies go out to you, Carl, and I hope we see you soon in Seattle or down in Astoria.
Jim, thank you for the wonderful tribute page. I think you've already circulated it to everybody by email. Really well done. Thank you.
And great summer, too.
Thank you for doing a great job.
Yeah.
You know, I know we're running long here. I want to give everybody a chance to talk. Zoom doesn't give me a full view of everybody that's out here, but I'm looking at a couple of folks I'm going to put on the spot, like right now, immediately, and then put you in there. But I'm looking at you, Anne. I'm looking at you, George. I'm looking at you. Who else am I looking at? Jack. Come on, Jack. So, you know, Jack just retired. He's got nothing but time to talk. So
come on, Jack, man up.
And I'm going to give you a chance to go second. And I'm going to put my buddy Jack, who broke me in as a reporter at the Knoxville News Sentinel, I'm going to put him on first. Jack, you go first, then Ann, you're next. You got to unmute, Jack. You're a digital guy.
There I am. All right, now you can hear me, right? What can I say, man? Everybody said some great things. I would just say a lot of this reminded me that she was the glue that held APME together, and I think a great way to honor her would be, try to reconnect these friendships now that the board has kind of gone its different ways. And so I think that'll be my commitment. I hope other people make that commitment too. And I keep up with a lot of you on Facebook. Carl, I hope Flip has many new adventures ahead and does lots of photo bombs. And I think she would like that. So she was a great person, as everyone has said. She was the best friend. She was their best friend on the board, and that was genuine. She was the best friend of everybody. So, what more can I say?
Good job, Jack, as always. All right, and you're next, but coming after you is going to be, I'm going to put EJ on the hot seat. I'm going to put Joe on the hot seat, and I'm going to put Julie on the hot seat. So Ann, EJ, Joe, and Julie.
Okay, deep breath. I tend to get emotional, which is probably why I was a little hesitant to say something. I just, like everybody said, Laura was the first person that welcomed you on the board. Angie was the one who got me connected. And I remember at one point talking to Laura, I think she was president when the year, that was my first year, and welcoming me and saying, "You're one of us now." And that really will always stand with me, because especially in today's, what's all going on and all the craziness, it really is important for us to know each other and to be each other's allies and stick together. There was never a time with Laura that that what we do is important. Always, that was, like you say, talking about journalism. And I will say that, until somebody leaves, you don't really know all that they were doing. I had the pleasure of working with her. Every week we talked about trying to raise money for the news train a couple of years ago. And I didn't know anything about grant writing or anything. And I don't think I added much help in that area in terms of actually bringing in cash. But we did talk a lot about that. And she kind of taught me how to write grants. And so it was a new skill that I did. But it was just such a nice pleasure to have that call every week, something different than all the craziness that is an editor's life every day. And she also worked with me on the photos of the month, making sure that once they were chosen, they would get on the website. And, I don't know how many people knew that was going on. So, she was just a wonderful person. I feel so fortunate to have gotten to know her, and you, Carl, as well. You remind me of an aunt and uncle of mine, you two, very much the same, very supportive of each other, just each other's best friend, making people feel comfortable and welcome, and making sure that we're doing the important work we need to do to keep our business as well as our the APME going forward. So I'm really so deeply sorry for your loss, Carl.
Sorry. And you did fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so that we keep our order straight here, EJ, Joe, Julie, and then George, you're next after them. EJ.
Been a long time, folks, since I've seen you guys. I loved APME. I've been gone a long time. And you can see that it took Laura to bring me back. I loved Laura. I loved seeing Laura and Carl. Pretty much the only people that I really knew what was going on and where they were after I left, and after I left journalism, was Laura and Carl. We're friends on Swarm, and I travel, I'm gone, I'm all over the place. The only people who could beat me checking in on places and being all over the place were Laura and Carl. They're checking in repeatedly. And so I would always keep up with them. I would always know where they were. And I just love Laura. I love coming to APME. I love coming, seeing you guys. We were all type A personalities. But I love seeing Laura and Carl because they always had a kind word. They always had a smile on their face, and they always cared about you. Never really them. It's like, what about you? And they always knew about you. So they knew what you were doing. So it was genuine. It was definitely genuine. And those two, you know, you can go to APME and you can say it's Laura and Carl, and it would be EJ and Ronnie. So we were always jealous of you two because you two were always around, and you took all the attention from EJ and Ronnie. I mean, these were the two couples at APME. Carl, my heart is with you. Again, I've followed you guys. I've watched you guys. I've enjoyed you guys even after I've left APME. When I got the news, the first thing I did is I went to Swarm and said, it can't be true, you know, because I know they're checking in somewhere. And so you're in my prayers, and you're in my thoughts, and you're in my heart. And I am so happy to be part of your family.
Thank you, EJ.
You're the man, EJ. Joe? Joe, you with us? You know, this feels a lot like my Zoom teaching class, Julie, where, you know, I wonder if anyone's actually going to unmute and actually going to actually participate in the class.
I just have to say, I wonder if anybody has noticed how I have had this bottomless beer the entire time.
I've been really impressed by that girl. I don't know who's your support staff there, but it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
All right,
You
Julie.
gotta have people.
I'm just so glad there are people there taking good care of you, Carl.
I have people.
Julie, you gonna save me from Zoom?
And no bathroom breaks, Carl. That's really impressive.
Even more
Big bladder.
Well, we might not be saved by Julie either. You know, I know we're going a long time. I think I asked George to go next, and I see George because George, I can actually put eyes on George. So George.
Hey there. I mean, it's hard to say anything after hearing all the wonderful things everybody else has said, but I was wrestling with this question of when we say that someone will stay within us, what does that mean? And I think that probably one of the things it means is that you take the best that that person gave you and you try to live it, right? So for me, the things that I took away from my time with Laura were the value of making people feel at home, the virtue of heartfelt commitment, the power of laughter, and the beauty of bringing love to everything you do. So that's what I'm going to try to carry forward. And Carl, heartfelt condolences for you, but as everyone else has said, it's actually, I always thought of you as kind of like one person, but you know, 4 legs. And I feel the same way about you. It's been great to spend time with both of you. And I just wish I could get one more hug from Laura.
Wow. Yeah, me too.
Thanks,
George.
She was a hugger.
Yes, she was.
He was a great hugger, one of the best.
All right, I can't see everybody. I may have missed anybody, anybody. Does anybody else want to chime in while the camera's rolling and we were recording this for Carl? I know we have some members, Carl, of your family on this call. I hope you can, I hope this is probably a glimpse into the wacky world of the friends that Laura and Carl have. Here we are in journalism and this weird and wonderful association that we were all a part of. I hope you all know how much we love and appreciate Laura and Carl, and how much our hearts across the country and spanning thousands of miles on this day, this remarkable day, that we're sharing our thoughts and prayers and feelings and love for Laura. Michael, you're the president. I'm going to give you one last chance to be benedictory, and then Kathy, to you, and then Carl, I'll let you wrap up. So Michael.
This is really a blessing for us all. I thought it was, what a tribute to a wonderful person, and to you as well, Carl. I mean, you two are very, very much a pair. So I feel very blessed to have been part of this. What is it? Is it 2 hours? I don't know. And feeling resolved to bring as best we can, bring as much of APME into NLA. This is going to take longer than my administration, which is up in December. But I think there's Allison, there's other folks, Mark, and so because what APM was and is.
Laura, are you interrupting the internet again?
What'd she say? It's not about her.
Laura.
About her, but she has been so brought a lot of life clearly to APME. So it was great to hear this and be a part of this and witness this tonight. So thank you for anybody who had anything to do with bringing this together.
Well,
I know Kathy had a lot to do with it.
Michael, thank you, and thanks for everything you're doing. Appreciate you and appreciate everybody that's continuing forth the great traditions of our combined organizations. So, Kathy, it's on you.
So, I just want to say how much I love all of you, and thank you for jumping in to talk tonight, to Tom, to you and Tom. You and I need to have a discussion about language. So you kept talking about a death notice. I kept talking about an obit. It's a style thing. We need to sort this out. But you did a fantastic job, Jim Simon. Jumping in to pull together all of the tributes. Paula Froke, it would not have happened without you. You put together all of the contacts, gave great advice on and your best advice. Well, so help me contact everybody, but also gave great advice on who the first contact should be for a memorial, and that was get Andrew. and you were completely correct. He was fabulous. So you guys, thank you all, and thank you.
Can I add quickly to thank Summer for the tribute page too.
Absolutely. Yeah, Summer, thank you. Because while many of us are good at words, we're not necessarily good at putting them all together and making them look beautiful. So Summer, you, as usual, over the top. Thank you. And for those of you who agreed to speak tonight, and for those of you who spoke after the, just you guys touched my heart, and I hope Carl we provided some comfort in this time of absolute shock, and anyway, we love you. We will always be here for you, and don't forget that ever. And okay, I'm gonna shut up.
So Carl, before I turn it over to you, I noticed Julie is back online and Terry's back online. Julie, I called on you. You know, you're like one of the kids in my Zoom class. You didn't answer. So I didn't know if you wanted to say anything real fast before we send everybody on their way.
Thanks, Andrew. Only that this was a woman who, like all of you, touched my life and so many young people. You know, her guidance and her help in just getting people enthusiastic, getting students enthusiastic. I'd often tap her on the shoulder and say, "Hey, do you mind if one of my kids interview you?" And she was right there on video and in person, and just enthusiastic about journalism. And you know, in these days, it's so hard to find people so enthusiastic about journalism, and that's what our kids need to hear. And she was there all the time. And I just feel so lucky to be part of the APME group and to know each and every one of you. You've filled my life. And Carl, the relationship that you and Laura showed to all of us, it's just an example of what team really means in life. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. Terry, is there anything when my internet went down that you didn't cover while you were filling in for me? And I think you did a better job than me of my speech. No, you got to
unmute, Terry.
You got to unmute, Terry.
Unmute is the phrase for 2020. Andrew, nobody can do a better job than the voice of God. So, you know, you're safe there. I just, you know, when I got this news, I'm like you, I can't believe it. And the one way that Laura everyone said it before, you know, you could not see her for 6 months, maybe you were on Facebook, but you just always picked up where you left off. Like you just talked 15 minutes ago, you just saw her yesterday. You know, it was just that kind of a relationship from the beginning. You know, and the work she did on the conference with APME, it's unquestioned that she is the heart and soul of it. A couple years ago when my sister passed away, you know, Laura had known I'd been talking to her about this. And the next time I saw Laura was at one of our board meetings, and she just came up to me and she gave me a hug. And it wasn't just a hug. I mean, she held on to me, and she's always held on to me. And I lost a colleague, I lost a friend, but I truly lost a sister. And Carl, thank you for sharing her all these years. You guys set the bar pretty high as a couple. I know there are no words that really provide the kind of comfort you need right now, but know that you're loved. You're loved. And Kathy, thank you for doing this and allowing us to come together like this. Thank you.
So Carl, on behalf of Elise and me and from Murfreesboro, Tennessee, thanks for sharing, Laura. Thanks for allowing us to have this night. And I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Andrew. I do again want to thank everybody for coming together like this. And, you know, it's not the ideal situation that we'd really want, but it is what it is. Kathy, thank you again, and Andrew, and everybody for all the work that they've done, the obituary, the memorial, the death notice, everything that you guys have done. I really appreciate it, and you guys really, truly are my family, and I don't want to lose touch with you guys. So if you feel like you haven't heard from me in a while, then reach out and just say hi. I'm going to try to get around, you know, once we can, and visit with people. And if conferences ever become a thing again, you know, I will show up and I'll be there. Alan, I think we need to go for a ride. So let's yes. So thank you again, everybody. And I really do hope, I know that Laura's family is online, and they've seen a lot of this and heard a lot of this, and I really hope that they now understand, you know, how much the whole experience of APME and everything meant to her. This was really one of the true passions in her life. And so I'm glad that we all could share it together. And I thank you.